Hey everybody, it is 8:06. I apologize. A couple of minutes late, but we're just kind of getting through things here in the Weather Center. I'm first warning meteorologist Eric Burris. This is Coffee Talk, and of course, this is going to be a special edition of Coffee Talk as we focus specifically on Hurricane Milton, the impacts potentially here in Central Florida, looking through all the data that you would want to see about, and of course, taking any questions that you have. I'm sitting in the Weather Center with meteorologist Kelly Ann Class, who will be handling the TV business for a couple of moments time so that we can chat. So first off, there's going to be a lot of people in here. So to all of you joining, I thank you. And hopefully our goal here will be to get you updated in a way that you have information, but you don't have necessarily any hype. That's our goal, at least. All right, here's the 8 o'clock intermediate advisory from the National Hurricane Center, continuing to get stronger. Maximum sustained winds have really picked up through the day today. They're now up to 125 miles an hour. Pressure is at 945 millibars, meaning that this storm system has begun a rapid intensification cycle. And really and truly, let me just kind of focus in on this infrared satellite imagery. It is just become a beast, just a very, very strong storm. Really strong storm system. Phil Klotzbach putting out, and this is kind of interesting, that the forecast for this is actually making this, if it verifies, the strongest Gulf of Mexico hurricane in October since Michael in 2018. And look at that pinhole eye. Doesn't that certainly look like a storm system that's um, not trying to slow any kind of strengthening whatsoever? All right, here's the forecast from the National Hurricane Center. It's a Category 3 major hurricane now, expected to become a Category 4 hurricane later on today, and basically sit at that Category 4 status, borderline Category 5 on Tuesday. Notice that Tuesday 2 a.m. time frame there, okay? 155-mile-per-hour winds. Category 5 is 156 if memory serves. So to that point, 58. Is it 58? Okay, so point is they're right on the border of Category 5 intensity. And then as it makes its way toward Florida, the expectation is we do weaken some right before landfall. Category 4 to Category 3, and then as it works ashore and in our area, it would continue to weaken to Category 1 intensity. I don't want us to focus on the categories as much as I want us to focus on the idea that there will be a very large, very strong hurricane moving our way. Very large, very strong hurricane moving through here. And a couple of things, because there's so many new residents. For those of you that were here for Helene, this is not going to be Helene. This has the potential to be a very impactful storm for all of us in Central Florida. Helene, we were getting kind of more of the outer impacts. This, we're going to be more direct impacts. Claire is asking, and I think this is a great question, what's making it drop from a Category 4 to a Category 3 storm at landfall? At the 11th hour, the idea here is that there will be a pickup of wind shear upstairs, and that wind shear will start to bring down some of the intensity. It's not promised, though, and that's why I don't think that we can hold our hat on anything. Just like the forecast from the National Hurricane Center, at this distance out, you're looking at about 100 or so mile cone of error. And so, because of that, we have to really focus on impacts rather than anything else. So, let's talk about a couple of different things. First off, the advisories. With the 5 o'clock advisory this morning, hurricane watches were posted. Sumter County, Polk County now under a hurricane watch, and that goes over toward the west coast. A hurricane watch, just so that you're kind of aware, a hurricane watch means that hurricane conditions are possible within the next 48 hours time. That also means that hurricane warnings will be issued for those areas at 5 p.m. tonight. For the rest of the metro, I suspect at 11 a.m., would you say? 11 a.m. hurricane watch is going up for the metro? I would think so. So again, that would mean hurricane conditions are possible within 48 hours time. That means we need to start working our action plans. We need to do what we need to do to fortify, to protect home and life, right? Like that's what we need to do. So start start thinking this way. We've been saying this for a couple of days, and when we look at our kind of timeline, this is what we use to work hurricane preparedness. The confidence has grown to a medium confidence. we're fairly confident we're going to be getting a hurricane. Okay. Because of that, today we need to be finishing those preps. School's in session, work is happening. So do those things. Go to work, go to school, but after work, after school, top off your kits. Now, what does this mean? You don't need to buy bougie water. I always know people are always like, what if I can't find water in the stores? What if I don't have money for it? You can be so you can be so non-fancy as to take a water bottle. I've got this. I've got it on ice. I've got my protein shake on ice. This fake Yeti, this off-brand Yeti cup. Fill it up with water and put it on your countertop, right? Decorate your countertop with cups of water. Everybody has cups in their house. It doesn't have to be fancy. The idea is you want to be able to be ready so that when the storm impacts you, if you have no water service to your house, you can still drink. Then you fill your bathtub up so that you could use that to flush your toilets, that sort of thing. You just have to be able to be self sustained if need be for a couple of days. Tuesday would be like last minute preps. And then Wednesday, late into Thursday, the storm arrives. Okay. When does the storm? And I'm just going to run through a bunch of data and then we can get into asking questions. When does the worst weather arrive? Tampa Bay area, we're looking at Wednesday afternoon for the worst weather. Early evening is going to be essentially Orlando Southwest, and then Orlando Northeast is Wednesday late evening for the worst of the weather to arrive. Okay. What are we talking about in terms of the worst weather, right? I think that we're looking at hurricane. These are sustained winds here. Okay. I think we're looking at hurricane force sustained winds in areas of red and purple. The purple, though, is the major hurricane winds. Pinellas County, coastal Manatee, coastal Sarasota, coastal Charlotte, coastal Lee. And we may have to make some adjustments to this, certainly, as the forecast narrows down, but that's kind of our best guesstimate. If you see something, by the way, just shout it. Like I'm just running my mouth, but if you see something interesting, please. In our area, these are the sustained winds. We're thinking sustained strong tropical storm force over all of Central Florida with hurricane force gusts. Okay, that's kind of where we're looking at the moment. Okay, that's why hurricane advisories certainly will be posted, and that's why we need to run our checklist. So here's where we're at today. Tonight, tomorrow, the storm system will continue to get stronger. Wednesday, it makes landfall kind of afternoon, evening. And then by Thursday, it starts moving off the shoreline. Okay. All right, let's dial into some of the hurricane hunters. This is one of the products. The NOAA planes do not have reliable SFMR. They found that the data wasn't good, but the Air Force does. And this is one thing that's interesting. Did you ever find like the actual measurement of it? No. I mean, according to the SFMR, and maybe it's aired high. I'm curious to see if they tagged it as they did not tag it as a suspect. Interesting. Okay. So there you go. Yeah.
The actual workings, I'll read their discussion
Yeah.
to see if they.
Yeah. I don't see a suspect tag on that. Interesting. Okay. So obviously they found perhaps on the SFMR category 5 winds. It's officially a category 3 storm, but the pressures continue to drop and thus um, the storm's continuing to get stronger. Pressure drops first, then winds pick up. So 944, 947, there are two aircraft in there now. They're both kind of on what would be the equivalency of it, like a downwind leg. They're going to turn base and final here shortly and come back in, and they'll both come back inbound at the same time. But this is the data that's giving us real-time observation in radar, on the NOAA P3 Orion, and then, of course, on the dropsondes off of the Air Force WC-130J Hercules aircraft. All right, so real-time data is critical in scenarios like this. Critical in scenarios like this. One thing that's interesting, if I may also, um, the data from the hurricane hunters, every time that they get into the core, they throw out what's called a vortex message. And it's kind of cutely named, but it lets us know little pieces of information, whether it's what you're seeing there, the minimum central pressure or the winds. But on one of the core passes, just a couple of moments ago, and I'm going to go back and try and find the data. Okay, the Hurricane Center's vortex message that they got from the recon mission said ragged eye wall. So it's forming that eye wall. severe turbulence in the aircraft, and hail entering the northwest eye wall. That to me is particularly wild that they encountered hail in a tropical warm chord system. Certainly, the severe turbulence is indicative of that rapid intensification. When it's more stable, that lets you know that it's not really, really changing pressures. So, all of the indicators are there that it is rapidly intensifying, right? Okay, now, before we get into county casts and things, this is kind of a, I'll call it cheesy, but I kind of love it, okay? Um, it's like a calendar. Tuesday evening, Wednesday morning, Wednesday evening, Thursday morning. This is the color coding for the boxes is confidence, right? Or impacts, I should say. And then, from there, it kind of gives you the coastal surge, the winds. So Wednesday morning, I think we'll start to get into some tropical storm force wind gusts or getting toward tropical storm force wind gusts. But Wednesday evening, overnight into Thursday morning is when I think we'll be looking at those hurricane conditions. Okay. So there you go. Couch on X is asking, Eric, why is the National Hurricane Center continuing with the track south of where the GFS and the majority of the models have been running in the last 12 to 18 hours? That's a great question. I think you have to understand the Hurricane Center does things very gradually. But if you notice, these are what I've done here is I've taken the last few hurricane center tracks, and this is the very center of the cone. Red is the current, and I'm just gonna go to the last two. The hurricane center did nudge their forecast though further north by 5 miles. It's not much, but they're not going to do a ton. They're not going to go hog wild with this, right? So it was a 5 mile adjustment. If you look though at the last five hurricane center forecasts, this morning's 5 a.m. in red is further north than the last three official forecasts. It's not as far north as it was yesterday at whatever that was. It would have been, I guess, 5 a.m. yesterday, right? But they've started to come back north. So the Hurricane Center has started shifting back north. They're not going to do anything um, overly dramatic. Okay. That's just not the way that they do business. And we're grateful for that. They are very cautious with anything that they do. Okay. People are asking if it's going to wobble. Yeah. Of course, storms like this, of course, they're going to wobble. That's the way that they work. So let's look at some of the models together here. Okay. All right, let me dial up. Let's start with our Futurecast model. We're getting in range where Futurecast can show landfall. And I'm going to show you, this is the 06Z. So this is the most recent run of our Futurecast model, okay? Watch how that wind field expands and our Futurecast is right up to landfall. And it's showing a potential landfall like right near Tampa Bay. And the problem is splitting hairs here will be the difference between surge rushing the bay or not rushing the bay. That's going to be the struggle here. Let's look at some of the other models. We'll go over to the GFS, wind, gusts, speed, and wind, gusts, states, Florida. Okay. All right. So here's the hurricane coming in. Okay. And according to this is 5 p.m. Wednesday. Starting to get those green colors into the Orlando metro. That's the tropical storm force winds, right? So we're starting to see things picking up in that window. Okay? Hurricane conditions along the west coast. GFS is further north. This puts hurricane conditions, that puts winds gusting to like 90 miles per hour in Sumter County, Marion County, 70, 80, 90 miles per hour. And we may have to track that. But that puts the center of circulation right over Wildwood, right over the villages, right over Ocala, and then clearing out. So if we look at the swath, this is kind of the window of the worst of the weather, according to the American GFS. You're talking, the GFS is saying 84-mile-per-hour winds, Ocala, 86 in the villages, 94 just outside of Wildwood, 87 in Leesburg, 65 in Orlando, and about 56 in Brevard County. That's the GFS. Let's look over at the European. Interestingly, it seems like the European has kind of shifted a little further to the north. Um, there, yeah, I mean, right into Pinellas, and that would rush the water into the bay. That would be the worst case scenario there. And then the center of circulation going like right over the Orlando metro. As if we're watching the swath, there's your swath talking about hurricane conditions across much of central Florida. These are sustained with higher gusts, right? Yeah. So um, the European AI model states Florida. The European AI model is just south of Tampa Bay. And you know, we can get into like the Canadian model. Canadian is further south. The icon, yeah, the icon is just a little bit south. And isn't that the problem with tracking hurricanes, right? Is it's really, really just splitting hairs. And that's what makes it just so tough. So it makes it so tough, right? Wherever the exact location goes, certainly the idea is just south of that landfall point, we will see the worst storm surge. So this is the first forecast for storm surge from the National Hurricane Center. And they're saying essentially from the Nature Coast down through Tampa Bay to about Fort Myers, 8 to 12-foot rise in water. And that means we could talk about up to 12-foot rise in Tampa Bay. It would be awful. It would be just awful. Yeah. Um, and I don't say that to hype. I promise I don't. That would just be a bad day. Yeah. So unfortunately, it looks to be rough. Everybody's asking about their individual communities. Um, I'll take you through real quick. All right. Marion County, let's talk about your county by county forecast. Okay. Winds running, and we may have to tweak this. You know, at 11 o'clock, we'll have some new model data. That model data is coming in now, and based on that and what the National Hurricane Center is saying, we may have to tweak it. But Marion County winds 50, 60, 70 sustained with maximum gusts 80 mile per hour and greater. The GFS is saying 90 to 100 miles per hour is certainly a possibility. Okay, that's Marion County. Let's over to Sumter County. Okay, for Sumter friends, worst of the weather Wednesday late into Thursday early. Again, 80 plus mile per hour gusts, and it's those gusts that can be so damaging. Lake County, wind gusts to 80 miles per hour, 5 to 8 inches of rain possible. Let's head inland to the metro area. Okay. For Seminole County, 45 to 65 mile per hour winds with gusts up to 75 miles per hour. Into Orange County, we're looking at winds sustained running 45 to 60, gusting higher than that. For Osceola County, for my friends off to the south, the problem is it all depends on the exact location of the storm's core. You could be looking at hurricane force wind gusts. And the same thing holds true if you live just west of there. My friends in Polk County, Bartow, Lakeland, Winter Haven area, 80 plus mile per hour wind gusts possible. Along the shoreline for Flagler County, we're looking at winds gusting 75 or so as it moves out of the area, particularly. Okay, down the shoreline. Volusia County, battering waves, beach erosion cannot be ruled out. 45 to 65 mile per hour sustained winds with gusts up to 75. Even though it comes ashore on the Gulf Coast, we're still talking about a big wind envelope across our area. Winds gusting up to hurricane force as well here in Brevard County. So that's our central Florida communities. Certainly, people live in other locations. And to you, I would simply say, we're going to be watching. We're going to do our best to keep you up to date. Okay. If you live in Pasco, Hernando counties, this could get into hurricane conditions, major hurricane conditions. You could be talking about 105, 110, 120 mile per hour winds, depending on exact trajectory. The angle of impact is going to play very big in terms of exact impacts. Lisa says it's been 15 years since Charlie in '04 in Orlando, I think, had 106 mile per hour winds. That's one of the things when I'm done with coffee talk today, I'm going to go back. Yes, ma'am. and look.
You're in the block, just like.
Okay, yeah, I figured. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Sorry.
So I'm gonna have to wrap up here in a couple of minutes. We'll be on Magic 107.7 should we get into that type of a scenario. Okay? People asking about flights, I would simply say after Wednesday morning, it would go questionable real quick. Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday evening, probably not. Thursday morning, probably not. Thursday midday, questionable. Thursday afternoon, getting a little bit better. Yeah, okay. All right, so that's kind of where we're at, my friends. So again, it's a major hurricane. All right, category 3 intensity. Magic 107.7 is the radio station. It's a major category 3 hurricane. Okay, let's take a close look at the center of circulation. It's getting better organized. Winds are at 125 miles an hour. We're getting nearly round the clock coverage at the moment from the hurricane hunters that are in. Let's see where they are. The last check, they were not turned inbound just yet, but they're starting to turn inbound. So we should get new data within the next couple of minutes. I'll be posting that on the Twitter and on the Facebook. Okay? All right. Other questions before I have to go run. You've got a Today Show cut in, right?
Yeah, I'm doing
Okay.
that now.
All right. So very good. So I've got a couple of minutes. Heather's asking, should Brevard evacuate? So to answer that, I would say right off the bat, the answer is no. If you're in a safe place where storm surge won't get you, hide from wind, run from water. Okay. Areas highlighted in red, the idea is the storm surge could be a real problem. So, should you evacuate if you live on the Nature Coast, Pinellas, Hillsborough counties? If folks tell you to, absolutely. In yellow, 99% of Central Florida, the answer is no, you should not evacuate unless you're in a mobile home, a modular home, a tiny home, that sort of thing. Now, Volusia, Flagler, St. John's, right at the shoreline, we may get the wraparound wind. So we may be talking about storm surge concerns there. So that's a possibility. But for the vast majority of us, the answer is no, we should not evacuate. To my brother Frank, who's in Pinellas County, I expect you to evacuate somewhere. Okay? And that goes for any other friends or family out that direction. Okay? I don't know how much clearer we could make it. Okay? If ordered to evacuate, the answer is yes, period. And you don't have to go 100 miles either. You can go 10 miles just to higher ground, that sort of thing. Okay? But, um, you know, concrete block, wood frame home, that sort of thing, a solid building inland, you hide from wind, you run from water. Okay? All right, listen, I got to go do some TV. I'll post a reel when the 11 o'clock advisory comes down. I'll post a reel to just give you a quick little shot of information. Okay? We're going to do the best we can to keep you up to date. We are now in continuous coverage on WESH 2. Okay? We're going to be here with you. And for those of you that are new to this coffee talk thing, I do this 7 days a week, just about at 8 a.m., rain or shine. And when it comes to storms, it is 150% my goal to keep you comfortable, to keep you informed in a no hype manner. My God, some of these scenarios people are talking about are terrifying. And I'm going to be honest, the reality is this could be a very bad storm, but you're not going to hear me freaking out. And I'm doing this in the hope that you don't freak out, because when we freak out, we make bad emotional choices. That's not our goal. Let's make sound, logical decisions, okay? All right, I'm going to go do TV. I'll be there in just a couple of minutes with meteorologist Kelly and class. We're here for you, okay? Florida's been here before. We'll do it again, I'm sure, at some point in the future. But we're going to get through Milton. We've gotten through everything else together, all right? I'm going to fight to earn your trust, and I'm going to fight even harder to keep it. Be the sunshine in someone else's day. I'll see you on TV in a couple of minutes, and I'll post little videos here or there throughout the day. Bye.